let me know if you see me. I am sorry for the delay. I tried to restart my computer, but it didn't work. I tried to re-log in from my Facebook, didn't work. I tried to clear the cache, didn't work. So sorry for the delay. I'm gonna go for my phone here. So I'm gonna see if you guys can see me. Just going to, comments will appear here. Okay, let me see if you see me or not. If you do see me, drop a hello. Okay, I see one eyeball. Can you drop a hello? Wanda has joined me. Let me just see if I'm able to. Let me know you see me. I see 6 eyeballs. I see Josette is on. Sorry about that. I couldn't figure out how it wouldn't let me get on. So I was restarting my computer, was doing all sorts of things, but it didn't let me get on. So we are on now. Let me know you see me. I see Cindy Hutchinson, Tracy, hi. I see the comments. I see Wanda. Awesome. Keep the comments coming in so that I know that you're with me. Lisa, you see me now? Awesome. Okay, perfect. Perfect. I just need to make sure I tag everyone. I don't know if I can tag the... Could someone, maybe Lisa, if you're on, would you be able to tag everyone or the Fierce Woman community? Just do the @ sign and tag everyone that I'm going live. That would be awesome. Just because I'm going from my phone, so I'm not too sure. Yes. Hi, Jennifer. Yes, you're so awesome. And Val and Yvonne and Annette. Awesome. All right, we're going to get started. Lisa, if you can try to tag everyone, that would be amazing. Just do the @ sign everyone or @ the Fierce Woman community so people can find me. I'm sure, yes, people are looking for me. All right, so we're going to get started here. Thank you, Lisa. I see it now. Hi, Kat and Yvonne. Yeah, Yvonne, just my computer is having an issue. I was trying to restart it, trying to relog into Facebook, all that kind of stuff. Didn't work. Okay, so we are now going from the phone. Okay, so if you are joining me, this is live number 133, the importance of macronutrients and understanding its importance to your healthiest body. All right, so how many of you on here watching right now, really I'm actually curious, who finds macronutrients confusing? If you find it confusing, can you put confusing below? I'm kind of curious how many of you on here actually find it confusing. Hi, Katrina, thanks. I know I texted, oh no, my computer's not working. She's one of my VAs. How many of you guys find macronutrients confusing? If you find it confusing, put confusing below. Hi, Janet, I see you as well. Janet finds it confusing. And as it comes in, I'll kind of read it out. Val finds it confusing. May, hi May, good to see you. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to dive into, just as you guys come in with those comments, I'm going to do my quick intro. So this is the Fierce Woman community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. So today's topic, I like macronutrients. I find it is interesting. I think people who learn it, here's the thing I say, it's kind of like riding a bike or driving a car. When you first ride a bike, it's like so hard. Like you watch your child, it's so hard. Or when you first learn to drive, it's so hard. But then eventually you just get it, right? I know some of my clients are on here, like Kat or myself or Lisa. Once you get it, then it's actually pretty, you get it, you know? There's still, you know, high level things. For example, I could drive a car, but I can't drive a race car. I would like to, but there's going to be higher level skills to know how to drive a race car, you know? So if like for baseline macros, once you learn it, you'll be able to know it well. Okay. So the key is to learn it first. So, before I dive into it, I just want to give a couple quick wins. These are just 2 really quick wins. Jennifer, I know you're on here. I have to give you a shout out. Jennifer, Leah, she has been at a plateau, I think, for about a month now. So she was at a plateau, nothing was shifting in her body. And obviously she reached out to me because I'm monitoring her in this muscle accelerator program. And we did some shifts in her macros. And, you know, she wasn't, I would say she wasn't sure about those macro shifts. But then she was very grateful because now we've broken that plateau. Now she started to drop again. I know she dropped 0.5 in her shoulders. She dropped 0.5 in her lower belly as well. And this is kind of what I'm saying is that once you know your macros, then the magic numbers are there, so you just have to dial it. You just have to learn to dial it. And when you know how to dial and what you're looking for, you can help someone break a plateau. Whereas it's really not just about, it's not just like, okay, just give you more calories, give you less calories. There's more to that, because when you do just calories, I'm using her as an example, right? Because when you just do calorie changing, you're changing one number, right? When I do macro changing, I'm actually changing 4 numbers. I'm changing calories, protein, carbs, and fat, right? So it gives me a lot more room to move to break her plateau. So Jennifer, super proud of you. Give her lots of hearts. I know she's like, nothing is shifting, and finally something shifted this past week. So proud of you. As well, Malika, you said you're at a plateau now. Yeah. And actually a lot of people are. And I think like if you don't know macros, it becomes really confusing how you can break your plateau. And certainly you can increase exercise, cardio, things like that too. But I think macros give you a much more precise basis to do it, right? Yes, Lisa, way to go, Jennifer. Hi, Beth. I see you jumped in as well. Also, just a huge shout out to just all the new FFF ladies. We are starting this Friday. They all know that we're onboarding this Friday. So give a shout out to Natalie Chabot. I might have said that wrong. Wanda Mercury and Sandy Kessinger. The 3 of them are going to be starting the FFF program. We did have Angela Graham, but she had something that is a family thing. So she's going to do the next FFF round. And then we also have Silver Forest, or Sylvia. She is also slated for the next FFF after. So people are just putting in their registrations ahead of time. But we are accepting a few more. So if you have not let us know you want to be part of the group coaching program, the FFF, where we do teach about macros and all of that, where you want to learn more, then please put FFF below. Okay. Yes. Hi, Natalie. I see you. Awesome. And Sandy is watching as well. Sandy's right here with going into the next FFF program. Okay. So 24 eyeballs. Let's talk a little bit about what is macronutrients. So I am going to give some like baseline things. Kind of some of it might be basic knowledge for a lot of people. But as I talk about each macronutrient, I'm also going to talk a little bit about percentages and things like that, although those of you who know me know that there is just no one size fits all. So I know for some of you it might be review, for some of you this might be new. Okay, so let's start with what are macronutrients. So macronutrients are the big building blocks of your body that is essential to survival. Like you need it, and you need it in large quantities. This is why it's called macronutrients, right? You need it in large quantities to make it happen. So there are 3 primary macro building blocks, which is protein, carbs, and fats. Okay, so protein, carbs, and fat, they all have their individual roles in your body. And I give this analogy a lot. If you watch a lot of my macronutrient lives, you'll know I say this like around, it's like the different workers, you know, in a building, right? So I always say protein is the building blocks, like the bricks of your house. So you need that, and you need more of that as you age. Think of a building that's breaking down, right? As you age and the brick breaks down or the wall breaks down, you probably are going to need more of that. And then the carbs are like the little workers. They're the little worker bees that work around. But just like in a building, there's different people in different positions. Your carbs play different positions in your body as well. And some carbs are you know, have more endurance, last a bit longer. And some carbs are just like, whee, they're tired really fast, you know? And so you have to know, yes, thank you again for tagging. I think one of my angels is tagging everyone. Thank you for tagging everyone. Awesome. So, and some carbs are kind of like workers that don't last a long time. They get tired really fast. They're done for the day. So you have to really know your carbs and what they do for your body. And then fats, I always say, is kind of like the electricity of the building, and the heating of the building, you know, the things that make the building run well and smooth. I mean, certainly you can still have the brick and the workers, but you would be really not happy to be in that building if it was super cold, like in Alberta when it gets to -40, or if it was like down in south in Florida and it's super hot, you have no air conditioning. You want fats to help you move well, or the building to function well. Okay, so I know that's a review for a lot of people, just to let a lot of people that are new understand that. I see Olga joined in, Yvette joined in. Hi Sharon, good to see you. Awesome. So let's talk first about carbs, okay? So carbs are the primary source of energy for your body, okay? They are your preferential source. They are the fastest, that's where your body goes to get energy, okay? Now, carbs are very important for your body, okay? But they have different roles. So you have 3 different kinds of carb splits in your body. So you can either split it into simple sugars, starch carbs, or fibrous carbs, okay? And understanding the purpose of each one is really, really crucial, okay? So I find that for a lot of people are just like carbs, like they'll say, like, I don't want to eat carbs, I don't want to gain weight. But the thing is, there are different types of carbs. And if you don't have certain kinds of carbs, then you're not going to be able to build muscle and certain things like that. Okay. Hi, V Jones and Rashida Walcott Florno. Nice. I like your name. Okay. So first type of carb, simple sugars. Okay. So simple sugars are simple carbohydrates. And these are the fastest moving sugars. They basically go through your system fast, gets absorbed quickly, spikes your blood sugar level. Okay. Now, there isn't a lot of reasons you should be having a lot of simple sugars. Okay. Simple carbohydrates, yes, is present. And I would say there's 2 instances you really need simple sugars. Simple sugars are needed if you're a high level athlete and you need to replace glycogen stores immediately, or marathon athletes, like, long distance, and you need those sugars quickly. And the second scenario is if you're hypoglycemic and your blood sugar level drops fast and you need to spike that blood sugar fast up, okay? But for most people, okay, I will say you don't need a whole lot of simple sugars and things, even fruit. I'm going to say it, like, I see so many people eat a lot of fruit. Like, you don't need a lot of simple sugars, because the thing is, what you have to understand is the effect of what sugars do to your body, right? Simple sugar equates to the release of insulin. So if you followed me last week's live about the number 1 hormone that we talked about that deposits belly fat, is cortisol. And the relationship between cortisol and insulin is very high. So now if insulin is released into your body, which is good, insulin is a hormone that regulates your blood sugar level. But if you spike your sugar level and insulin is released all the time, your insulin is going to start to potentially over time, not all at once, malfunction, right? When it's like having too much insulin in the system, trying to figure out what to do with all the blood sugar. And so this is why people who eat a lot of processed foods or high sugary foods, or even if you don't think you eat high sugar, simple carbs, a lot of you may not know in your foods there's actually existing a lot of simple sugars that you might not even realize. Pamela, are you on here? Pamela Irwin, who's in my transformation program. I know currently we're really combing through her food log and really helping her see all the things that she's intaking, she's not even realize becomes this simple sugar in her body. Now, of course, some of it, a little bit, is not going to be horrible, but I will say, if you are in menopause, oh, Pam, you are here. There you go. See, I was just referring why I'm telling you a lot of the things within your food log right now, right? And hi, Janice, good to see you. And so excessive consumption of simple carbohydrates, right? Essentially a lot of added sugars and things like that is going to contribute to weight gain, to increase inflammation, to potential insulin resistance, and potentially type 2 diabetes. I believe, Pam, you are type 2 diabetic, diabetic, if I'm correct, Pam. And so this is why now combing through your food log, we can see, well, there's a lot of things that could be potentially contributing to that. So being very careful about simple sugars is very, very crucial. And understanding what are these simple sugars are also crucial. So this is partly about the education of, like, when I educate people through working with them, is to help them understand what is causing all of this insulin spike in your system. Okay. Now let's talk about second type of carb, which is complex carbohydrates. So complex carbohydrates are actually good for your body. You do need carbohydrates, like I mentioned, but starch carbs have longer chains of sugar molecules. So it takes a lot longer for it to break apart. So if it takes your body longer to break apart, then it means that you don't spike your insulin as fast, right? And so this is crucial because you need constant energy. This is good. But something that won't force your insulin to go fast and spiking in and causing this hormone spike, right? So I would say, awesome. Yeah, Malika, you said by counting macros, I was able to get off of diabetic medication, control my A1Cs. 100%, Malika. I've actually coached a lot of women that were diabetic or pre-diabetic that have now changed their A1C levels, right? This is because you fully understand macros and the impact it is. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So you're going back to complex carbohydrates is understanding, like, you know, how to take in more of the complex things, like maybe like brown rice and quinoa, you know, like I would say root vegetables. I love yams, things like that, that are very starchy or that like takes a lot longer to digest is really, really good for your body, and is probably one of the main things I would say when, depending on what stage of fitness you're wanting to be in, it's going to be very crucial for you for building muscle. So you want to make sure you're prioritizing good carbs, and making sure you understand how you're selecting the food choices, right, is really crucial. So that's another thing I really teach on, like the list of all the things you can have. I know Pam, we're going to talk about that on Sunday, is the list of all of those things that the starch carbs and the good ones for your body, right? So starch carbs you do need. And then there's a third kind of carbs you do need as well, which is fibrous carbs, okay? Fibrous carbs are obviously things that have a lot of fiber in it. It has complex carbohydrates you can't digest, which are like polysaccharides, like cellulose, the plant, you know, the walls of the plant. And what's the purpose of fibrous carbs is that type of carb is not really going to help you build a lot of muscles per se. I mean, it could a little bit. I would still say it gives you a little bit of energy, but like fibrous carbs are mainly there to help regularity in your bowel system, help promote, you know, obviously you to go to the bathroom, and it contributes to a healthy gut system, right? So one of the things I'll say, because I deal with a lot of menopausal women who deal with a lot of fat or belly fat in their belly, and kind of this just like poor digestion. And I will say, like, so a lot of times things just get backed up, things are not moved, and that's gonna really contribute to slow digestion, slower metabolism, poor nutrition absorption, as well as increased inflammation, right? So having good fibrous carbs is going to be crucial. I know you guys may know that, but it's something that I'll say is, as I coach and teach people about macros, a lot of times people will start to go, oh, I want, you know, I know complex carbs, I need good complex carbs or protein, but they forget the fibrous carbs and the importance of fibrous carbs. Okay, so there's three kinds of carbohydrates. Now, how many of you knew there's all three kinds of carbs? If it's new to you, put new. Just I want to know how many people are aware that there's different types of carbs and its function within your system. Hi, Marcella, I see you jumped in. Natalie and Jem as well. Nice name, beautiful name, Jem. Okay, so how to balance the simple complex carbs and fibrous carbs is going to be really crucial for how you manage your blood sugar level, your digestive health, and kind of how lean you also want to get. Malika says it's new. Sherry says it's new in terms of didn't know the different types of carbs. And Janet says it's new, okay? So how you balance these different types of carbs is relating to what is your goal, right? I would say carbs are commonly manipulated in athletic settings and competitions. If you're a bodybuilder, any competitive bodybuilders on here? If you do, raise your hand. Any competitive bodybuilders will know is one of the most commonly manipulated macronutrients. Why is this? Well, carbs have a lot of different things. First of all, carbs, in terms of manipulation of the carbs, and that's why someone who knows or has lots of experience can help you achieve your body physique goals faster. Pam says sort of knew about different types, but not how they affect you. Good, Pam. So I'm glad you're learning it. We'll make our talk on Sunday easier because we'll talk about stuff like this. So first of all, carbs are the fastest energy source, right? So in terms of athletic pursuits or actually like building muscle, having enough right types of carbs and knowing how to carbo load your body, this is called carbo loading. There's also carbo deloading, is important often for athletic pursuits or wanting to build muscle. Again, depending on your goal. What is your goal for your body? So these are things you have to determine or discuss with your coach. And as well, carbs help with muscle building and protein sparing. Okay, so when enough carbs are present, then your body will actually be able to save a lot of those protein amino acids and use it for protein synthesis. So actually the presence of enough carbohydrates is necessary for protein synthesis to happen. Okay. Oh, Malika, you are a powerlifter. Awesome. I'm also training with a powerlifting coach as well, both Olympic lifting and powerlifting. Awesome. So there's so you might have different recommendations, especially like, I don't know if you compete, Malika, and you're probably going up to a powerlifting competition. There's certain things they're going to say in regards to carbohydrate loading, and it will be different from a bodybuilder for sure. So like if you have to have enough carbs, just one regional, woo, everybody give Malika a round of applause. Amazing. That's awesome, Malika. Super proud of you. So in terms of the protein sparing, what you want to pay attention to is you have to have enough carbs present to allow the body to do protein synthesis. Okay, so again, all 30 eyeballs watching is, if you don't really know your macronutrients, I know so many women at this age, maybe the 50-year-old, 40, 50, 60-year-olds, is like, I'm not building the muscle I want. You have to be very careful because you may not be having enough carbohydrates. But the balance is really important, because if you have too much carbohydrates, you could also gain weight, right? But it's like you have to know the ranges of where it needs to sit, because you do need to have sufficient carbs to have muscle building, right? First meet at age 58, Malika. That's super cool. I love that. That's awesome. Well, that's very inspiring, because I know most of the women here are 50s, 60s, and they want to know, like, it's possible to do cool things like powerlifting competitions, bodybuilding competitions. So awesome. You're getting lots of cheering and emojis right now, which is awesome. So that's another thing. So another thing is, obviously, why is it manipulated? Carbs are manipulated because of its insulin response, right? So we know that when insulin is present, okay? So when you release insulin into the system, not only does it regulate blood sugar level, but the presence of insulin actually affects nutrient delivery and nutrient uptake, which radically affects muscle growth and recovery. Okay, so a coach who knows what they're doing, especially in an athletic pursuit, or they're trying to help you build a more lean body, they're going to play a little bit with carbs in the right way, because they also know the impact of what it's doing in insulin and what it's doing on nutrition. Okay, in nutrition absorption. Yeah, awesome. I still love it, Malika. I love it. She said, if I can, anyone can. Exactly. Yeah, I just love the inspiration. This is what this group is about, right? Is inspiring all the women, 40, 50, 60s or 70s, no matter how old you can still pursue something great. And I've seen just the fittest 60-year-olds, right? So it's amazing. Another thing to consider why carbs are manipulated is because of water retention and the fullness of your muscle. Now, obviously, this requires a little bit more knowledge base of nutrition. A regular person probably wouldn't know how to manipulate this to create these types of results. This is why bodybuilders do manipulate it, because we can change where we want water to sit and water retention, extracellular retention, water retention, or intracellular water retention can be manipulated. I would say that when you manipulate carbs the right way, you can make your muscles pop. And this is why on the, if you ever compete and got to the final stage ready, there's a lot of things that happens to allow your muscles to pop more. And so this is just giving you more knowledge of why. One of the things I said yesterday is you can still be generally healthy. You don't have to count carbs. I have so many friends who don't agree with me. They think it's like silly to count carbs. And that's okay. But I think like once you've done it, I think for people who have done it, who have done macronutrients, it's just like you realize you have this like next level power, if that makes sense. You have a next level power to dial your physique, to want to look a certain way, and you just have more empowerment than playing with just one number, as I mentioned before, okay? And this is why I'm describing to you why even understanding one aspect of carbohydrates can influence so many different things in your body. And that's just talking about carbs right now, right? So, okay, so how many of you, I still have more to cover here, but how many of you feel like you need to learn more about the right carb ratios? So if you want to learn more about the right carb ratios, put carb ratios below. I see lots of people popping in. Hi, Lynette. I think you popped in a while ago. Cynthia, Denise, and Lynn. Awesome. So if you want to learn more about the different carb ratios or the carb ratios you need, I put carb ratio below. Okay. Now, I'm going to get asked this, so this is why I'm going to address this. Okay. So the American Dietary Guideline, okay, will say, because I always get asked, well, what's the carb ratio for me, right? I'm sure you're thinking about it and you're waiting on the edge of your seat for Clarice to tell you. And so here's the thing, is there's always going to be general recommendations. Why? Because there's general things that everybody wants to know. But the thing I will always say is general recommendations produce general results. So it depends on your goal. You might be someone who's just like, hey, just general is good. That's awesome. If you're someone who wants very specific, or you're struggling through something, a plateau, particularly menopausal women, certain stages, maybe diseases you have, or certain conditions you have, then you have to be a little bit more cautious, right? Because generalities are only generalities, right? So the American Dietary Guideline says generally carb ratio should sit between 45 to 65%. Okay. Now that's a big range. And they even say on there, it's like, but people can be above that and be below that too, you know? So it's like, really, you could be in a whole whack load of ranges depending on what you need. And what I will say was I just described, yeah, Sherry generally refers to men. That's funny. That's true. You know, there's also including women and men, which is kind of not fully accurate, right? So yeah, it's a good point you make, Sherry, there. And then the other thing I was going to say is when they say the percentages like that, that's cool for you to know, but I just described above to you, there's 3 distributions of carbs, which is simple sugars, starch carbs, and fibrous carbs. There isn't really that much of a breakdown for you in that percentage, 45 to 65% of what? Of how do you split the 3, right? That's a big question. This is why I said, like, it's like you actually have to learn and you need to know the impacts of the different types of carbs. And then in that, if it was 45 to 65, which by the way, I don't even always go by that. It's like, well, what's the split between the different carbs then? Right? And like, when do you need more simple sugars or starch carbs or fibrous carbs? So this is where it starts getting a little bit more, I think it's like, I don't want to say complicated. I think that it's just like precision. How much precision do you want? And does it impact your body if you have more simple sugar ratio versus starch carb ratio in your body? Absolutely. It's going to impact your body. will it impact your body if you have more fibrous carbs in your body versus starch carbs in your body? Absolutely. It will impact, it will change how your body looks. So this is why you have to really understand how you need to manipulate carbs, or have someone who has that knowledge or has a lot of experience in that to help you. Or, like I said, you can trial and error a lot. The only thing I'll say is trial and error is okay. I think sometimes you will need to do that. But I will say, like, if you have limited nutrition knowledge, you could be trial and erroring a long time and not getting the results. And there's factors of a lot of other hormones I'll describe later that you may not be taking into account when you're manipulating your carbs. So this is why I'm just trying to give you context to understand, for all the people who have to have a number, the general is 45 to 65%. Okay. So, Rosalie said experts have been saying that there are, your comment on a phone, it just goes by, so I can't see it as it's moving. These are outdated for about 20 years, then don't include the population over 60. Yeah, and Rosalie, thank you for bringing it up. Exactly, because I just think it's so general, like it doesn't include people that are maybe aging, people in menopause. I speak so much about the specific needs of menopausal women. And so this is something you want to be really careful about when you're looking for these general recommendations. Okay. It's a good maybe start, but you definitely want to I think you want to find people who actually know and have worked with that population of people to really understand what are the needs of that age range, right? So Sherry says, what foods are fiber carbs? Sherry, that would be anything that has a lot of fiber, like fruits and vegetables, mainly a lot of vegetables. I would say fibrous carbs can include sometimes root vegetables as well, but depending on the type of root vegetable, that could fall into starch carb as well. So you kind of have to know the ratio of how much carb loading is in it, but I would say a lot of vegetables is basically fibrous carbs. Okay. Hi Debbie, good to see you. You popped on in, and I know Debbie competed over the weekend, so cheering for her. I know she competes in her ballroom dancing. Awesome. So again, what I will say, okay, so I want one more thing before we move on to protein. Okay, is at menopause, okay, you have to consider a few things around carbs. And this is what is my role as a coach, is why am I considering certain things when I coach a lot of you in your stage? Is at menopause, you are more likely to be insulin resistant. It is just, many studies have shown, and the reason is just because of your hormones shifting and higher inflammation markers, cortisol rising in your system, creating more that insulin is not responding as well, because cortisol actually shuts off insulin response, right? There's a lot of I went through a lot of that last week, to be honest. So if you haven't watched last week's live, put last week's live. we'll tag you on it. But I went through all that how cortisol affects insulin. And so you're more likely to be insulin resistant as you age, right? So this is important to note, because if you are more likely to be insulin resistant as you age, you have to be very careful about how you distribute carbs. You have to be very careful at knowing where your carb loading should happen, but you need carb. So this is why I said this is kind of tricky, a little bit tricky for menopausal women. As well, in menopause, you are more likely to experience inflammation in your system, okay? Why? Again, shifting hormones. Estrogen is a protector against inflammation. You lose estrogen, your inflammation increases. A lot of you then start having belly fat and visceral fat. Visceral fat further exacerbates inflammation. And this causes what? Inflammation rises in your system, and it means it cannot respond to carbs or refined or simple sugars as well, right? Because what do we know about sugar? Everyone knows this. Added sugar and simple sugars can potentially raise inflammation in your system, right? So now when we kind of start to add all the blocks together, you're like, oh my goodness, this is why menopausal women have such a difficult time with nutrition. Yes, it's true. This is why you have to be very good with your nutrition, have to understand the impact of carbs and what is happening. And then the other thing with menopausal women is your cortisol is likely to be higher, because your body is shifting in all these hormones, and your body is experiencing experiencing just more stress, like internally a lot more. And so cortisol is something we talk about controlling a lot from last week's live, of course. And so you want to be careful about like how you're spiking your insulin, how much sugar is entering your body. So, and that's why it relates to how you should be exercising as well as you age. So it's like the thing I want you to take from this is it is more complex for a menopausal woman to truly understand and get their macronutrients on par because of a lot of moving parts. Is macronutrients super complicated? I would say it's somewhat complicated when you don't know. Like I said earlier, once you learn it, it's not as complicated. But even my clients who have learned macronutrients, like Kat Wilson, I know she came to me. I know Sherry's good. We're gonna chat, Sherry. I'm excited to chat with you. Even if you have learned macronutrients, what you have to remember is your body is changing in menopause, and there's more things that must change in your macronutrients. And this is where having someone who's an expert or someone who knows what they're doing or have worked with hundreds, if not thousands of women in that population. Remember, it's in that population is very crucial because they have a lot of data to back up what is going on with the macronutrients, right? So again, if you haven't put I know above you guys put carb ratio if you want to help, or you can put carb help if you want more help with the carbs and want to understand carbs more, put carb help below if you haven't already commented above. If you have, you don't need to say it. And I see lots of last week's live, so we will tag you. Debbie is our queen of tagging for previous lives, so she will probably help you with that. Felicia, I need you. Oh, you're so sweet. Felicia, we will reach out to you for sure. And, I think, obviously it's just something I'm really grateful. I have so much experience working with all the women in this age range because I can really intricately know how nutrition is affecting your body at like this stage, right? So I would say if you're in your 20s and 30s, honestly, carbs is not going to be like you can absorb carbs a lot faster. It's more simple. Like when you need more energy, you take more carbs in. When you want to lose weight, you reduce carbs. It's like a lot more simple for a 20, 30-year-old. And so like your daughter or your son may look at you and like, why are you so I guess sometimes they'll say, why are you so obsessed with food or like counting macros? And I just want to kind of reassure a lot of you. It's like, I think for a younger person, it doesn't make sense. It almost seems like, why are you so like on top of it? But for an older person or a menopausal woman, it's like you really need to be on top of your macronutrients, right? So this is one of the reason for my topic. Okay, so all 32 eyeballs, good to see you. Okay, so let's dive into, see carb ratio, Cindy. So if you guys need help with more carb, put carb ratio or carb help below. But let's dive into proteins, okay? So protein is the building blocks of your body, like I said, right? This is vital. It's a vital nutrient to help you like repair tissues, muscles, organs, help with your immune system. And protein is made up of amino acids, okay? And how these amino acids are arranged will determine what kind of protein molecule it is, okay? Now, there's the protein, the roles of protein is tremendous in your body. You need it all throughout your body for a lot of different roles. You need protein for enzyme action, so proper digestion. You need protein for structural protein for your hair, for your skin, and for your nails. You need transport proteins for like moving substances like ions, hemoglobin for blood. Like you need that. You need protein for antibodies for your immune system. You need protein for your muscles, contractile proteins, right? Actin and myosin, which is the muscle fibers, the molecules that do that to make your muscles contract. You need proteins for hormone. Okay, yes, hormones are made up of protein. Signaling proteins that help with things like insulin and, like your blood sugar level. All of these are driven by different types of proteins. Okay, so protein is extremely important. Now, I think most people know this. They know it's very important. I just don't know if you knew how many roles it plays in your body. Okay, now in terms of protein, if we go by again, general standards, okay? Because I always will get asked this. Again, Malika said it above. Oh, hi, Rebecca. Good to see you. Rebecca was in my transformation program and then the muscle accelerator as well. So good to see you. So Malika has said it above, okay? Sometimes these recommendations don't include certain populations or might be outdated or might include maybe both female and male recommendations. So this is what I'll say is that I'm going to say these general numbers, but they are very general. I don't really always go by them. I go by, well, one of the things I do, as those of you who are with me, is I observe how you eat. I observe what you're logging. I observe how you work out. I observe a lot of things, your stress levels, before I can figure out exactly like what exactly is right for your body and take into account a lot of different factors, okay? But, the RDA says, okay, you should have 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight as an average, okay? But here, get this. They say if you're more active and you're super, like you're doing lots and you're an athlete, it can go up to 2.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. So it can more than double that, right? So again, the range is very, very, very large. And so there's a few things I want you to keep in mind, okay? Is if you are an older adult, yes, you should have more protein because you're breaking down. Simple as that, okay? The building is breaking down. You need to put more bricks in there, okay? So you should generally have more protein. And so that's why some of these recommendations, you want to be careful. You would be potentially under the needed protein potentially. If you're in menopause, you likely also need more protein. And the reason is also as you lose estrogen, you are losing the possibility of your muscle mass. You're going to be, you're losing nutrient absorption ability. Your nutrient absorption decreases as you age, and there's a lot of reasons for this. So you're not even absorbing, like, let's just say you take in this amount of protein, but maybe you're not absorbing that amount. Well, you have better chance of absorbing a little bit more with more protein than if you take this much. It's just enough, but you're not absorbing it, right? So there's a lot of reasons why I would say you definitely want to have more protein. Yeah, sarcopenia, Rosalie, like I talked about. I had a live on sarcopenia, and as you age, you're going to lose muscle. So you really want to emphasize more protein for muscle mass preservation, to make sure you maintain an increased metabolic rate in your body. So obviously more muscle means more metabolic rate. Protein also has a higher thermogenic effect in your body, meaning it causes your body to need to use more energy to digest it. So it's good for your body. Protein also helps with increasing bone health when combined with vitamin D and stuff like that. So it's like you're gonna, as you age and as a woman, you're gonna potentially face osteoporosis and things like that. So you want to make sure you have that for bone health. And protein also helps you with feeling full, feeling full and reducing appetite. So if you are in a phase where you want to manage your weight, as most menopausal women, as they age, are struggling with weight and everything, you might want to have a little bit more protein to control that as well, right? So I feel like for protein, it's unlike carbs, where sometimes people are a little bit afraid of carbs. I think most people know they should have more protein. It's just, though, I do find a lot of women, they still don't get enough protein of what I feel like they should get. Now, if Jody Peoples is on here, I know currently we're working on protein requirements, and yep, she thought she was having enough protein, but she definitely is not. And it's now she's realizing how much more she really needs in her body, right? And so in terms of protein, you need there's 20 amino acids. Again, this is just base knowledge. You guys might know this. And there's 9 that you cannot make yourself, which are called the 9 EAAs, essential amino acids. So those you have to get from your food, okay? The other 11 you can produce yourself, but the 9 you definitely need, okay? So protein sources, if we were to look at protein sources, what are protein sources? Well, like animal, fish, eggs. For those of you who do eat that, that's fine. You can get it from beef, poultry, lamb, fish, like I said, eggs. Now, if you're a vegan, I do know I'm coaching Angelina, who is a vegan. So obviously you're not going to eat those. You can still get it from like legumes, quinoa, like soy. And yes, there's some things with soy, but like, yeah, in moderation, you know, different seeds, chia seeds, different things like that. So you do have protein sources from, like, for vegans, you can go sort of that route. The only thing with that, what I will say, well, that's why understanding your macronutrients is really important, is that a lot of the more vegan-based products have a lot of combination of other parts of the macronutrients involved, meaning it's not just protein. They may have also high ratios of carbs or high ratios of fat with it. And so this can become more complex when you really are wanting to dial your macronutrients in. I will say that it is slightly harder for a vegan to get very accurate with your macros, but it's not impossible. You just have to do more work. But this is something to just keep in mind for those of you who don't eat a lot of meat, who don't eat a lot of these types of things. You have to be careful, because I know Rosalinda, I know she's not on here, but I did an interview with her. She competed at 57, but gained a lot of weight, came to me at 63, and we were able to drop her belly back down to almost flat at 64, I believe. So I know there was an amazing interview with Rosalinda. She went vegan, but she kept gaining weight. And this is the thing, is that just because you go vegan doesn't mean it's necessarily healthier. If you're not understanding how your macronutrients are being affected within these other foods, okay? So this is why, like, you have to know, what are you intaking? Okay, you want more protein, but this item have protein and a lot of fat as well, because I know Rosalinda and I talked a lot about this, and what this is doing to your body if suddenly you're just intaking too much of this. Okay, so it's yes, you know your protein sources. You can get protein from different sources, but you must understand protein, carbs, and fat ratio totality. That's what I'm saying. If you just focus on trying to get protein, as a lot of maybe vegans start wanting to figure out, because vegans have a tendency to be deficient in their 9 essential amino acids, or just not getting enough because it's harder for them, and they start focusing purely on getting protein, they're going to neglect fat and carb ratios, which will affect their total body composition, right? So yeah, Lisa said Rosalinda is amazing in so many ways. She's wonderful. Okay. Now, in terms of protein, okay, and I want people to tell me if you feel like you don't consume enough protein, put not enough protein. If maybe you're suspecting you don't consume enough protein, okay? If you don't have enough protein, this will lead to, I already mentioned this, but muscle loss, okay, a higher risk of injuries, okay, your bone health is going to decline faster. If you don't have enough protein, your metabolic changes means that your metabolic rate is actually going to start to slow down. So Cindy says she doesn't get enough. Yeah, Lisa says she doesn't get enough, right? And like, it's like Cindy, Lisa, and people who are actually putting in these comments, sometimes it's also hard, because I know, for example, Cindy, you're really trying to lose weight, like you're trying to decrease you know, the fat in your body. So you're trying to figure out, like, well, I don't want to eat too much. And so it's, again, this like balance, right? But it's not just decreasing amount of food. It's like, what quality of food are we now changing to allow your fat percentage to drop, right? So Felicia says not enough protein. Janet says I eat a lot of meat and nuts, but I still don't know if I get enough, Janet. Yeah, one of the things I would say is, Janet, do you feel like, I mean, I believe you lift weights, if I'm correct, when I'm not sure if there's a lot of Janets, but I think you regularly lift weights, but are you building muscle? Do you see that you're getting stronger? Like, do you see the results of your hard work, right? And a lot of menopausal women have a lot of trouble building muscle. Largely, I know it sounds surprising, because so many of you know it's important to take protein, but you don't take enough protein, like not enough for sure. And then if you don't have enough protein, hormonal, oh, yes, the truck driver. Yes, right. You're on the road a lot, right? Yes. But yeah, if you don't have enough protein, hormonal imbalance, right? So if you don't have enough proteins relates to a lot of hormones, and hormone production. And think about it, if you're in menopause, if you don't get enough hormonal signals or production, this is going to exacerbate your menopausal symptoms. You might have more intense mood swings, fatigue, sleep disturbances. So this is something that's really important, that you have enough of that, right? So, okay, Felicia, yeah, you have a specific condition, right? And Lisa, I've been told I don't eat enough, period. I don't lose weight because my body thinks I'm starving. Yep, Lisa. So I guess you guys all see that, and Debbie on here can attest to it, because when Debbie first came to me, I know I always use her as an example, but she is definitely not the only one. The last round of FFF, ladies, you guys know. I don't know if Tracy, you're on here. I believe maybe you, but I know for sure Yvonne definitely ate very little. Like, again, like just in the 800, 900 range. And what you just said there, Lisa, is true, right? Your body is an adaptive thermogenesis. It adapts and brings down your metabolism because you're not giving it enough, right? So then your body's not going to let you lose weight, right? So again, more complex than just calories, but calories is a part of the equation, right, Lisa? So definitely have to learn to eat more. Lisa, maybe we can reach out to you and talk to you a little bit more about that. So yes, and then if you don't have enough protein, then you will potentially have weakened immune system, because obviously protein is a big part of your immune proteins that are produced, right? And so you're more susceptible to get sick or illnesses that will come about, right? So like I said before, there's those general recommendations, and if you talk about percentage on the pie chart, you know, a lot of people will say generally maybe like 30% for protein. But again, I would say, like, I don't really go by that. I know that like there's more, the needs of menopausal women and aging women is actually more. So I usually want it to be a little bit higher. But it's like knowing how you're going to get that without spiking your carbs and your fat ratios as well, right? So it's like you got to then learn, okay, well, what will spike your carb and fats and protein, like, and what won't, right? And so then that's where the confusion comes a little bit, because because foods don't usually operate just by itself. Sometimes it can, and those that do are really nice to work with in macro counting, but those that don't, like in the people who are vegan, that becomes much more complex, right? So, Felicia, like I said, that recommendation I mentioned is general. I can't know till I get to know you. I could say generally 30%, Felicia, but I mean, that is me not knowing you, right? Like that's me just saying a general number, right? And so you have to be very careful about that. So again, if you want to learn more about how much protein intake you need, or the proteins, or you know you're not eating enough protein, as a lot of you had said, put protein below, so that we can reach out to you to help you. Yeah, so indicate protein below, okay? Awesome. So we are going to go to number 3, which is fats. So fats are also really important, also part of macronutrients, okay? Fats are concentrated sources of energy, and they're very important for absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, okay? Your fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. Vitamin D is extremely important. Well, all of them are actually important, but I'm just emphasizing vitamin D because vitamin D has a lot to do with your mood, your digestive system, and your muscle building potential. And so if you don't have enough fats, you're shortchanging your ability to get good vitamin Ds, right? And I know a lot of you do take vitamin D supplements from talking to you guys. I know that. But it's to understand what the role of fat, okay? So fat is needed for healthy skin, hair, nails, insulating body organs, and helping you feel full after meals. And it is very important not only for fat-soluble vitamins, but also for hormones, okay? I will talk about a little bit more about hormones because there's certain classes of hormones that is based on fats, okay? So you need that as well. I see lots of protein come in. So yes, we will reach out to you on that. So there are, well, 3, but actually 4 divisions of fats. So there's saturated fats, unsaturated fats, trans fat, and cholesterol. Cholesterol is not a full separation of fat, but I mean, people talk about cholesterol a lot. So, so saturated fats, okay, is fats typically from animals, meats and dairy, and is typically solid at room temperature. A little bit is okay, but I know too much of saturated fats is generally not recommended. A lot of times it's associated with LDL, low density lipoproteins, which are your not good cholesterols. So you just want to be limiting that. A little bit is okay, just not too much of it. And so obviously choosing leaner meats is always good. So that's saturated fats. And then you have unsaturated fats, which I think you should have more of when you can. Unsaturated fats are like plant-based fats from like nuts and seeds, and they're typically liquid at room temperature. Okay. Now, in the unsaturated fats portion, you have monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats. So monounsaturated fats are they are like things like olive oil, if things from like avocado, and when it says monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, just how many chains of the bonds it has. So it's like basically mono and poly both are liquid, but it's like different kinds of oils. I would say polyunsaturated fats, the poly has more to do with omega-3s and omega-6s that you might hear, and like fatty fishes and things like that, right? So, yeah, exactly, Rosalie. So in terms of the unsaturated fats, it's good to have a little bit more of that, like emphasize, unsaturated fats over saturated fats if you can. But I will have more to say about these types of fats in a bit, okay? So you have more the solid one, the saturated fats, the liquid one, the unsaturated fats. And then you have trans fat, which for those of you, again, who've watched lots and lots of my lives, is not something you want, okay? So trans fat are unsaturated fats that are chemically processed to improve shelf life, okay? So you're gonna find this in a lot of processed foods, baked goods, fried foods, margarine, things like that. So it's like not good for you. And it actually, I did a live talking about how trans fat actually attaches to the surface of your cell membrane, and it causes almost a malfunctioning of the cellular membrane communication. So trans fat is not good for you. Be very careful of like deep fried foods or things that you really like that might taste good, or that like fried chicken you like, just be careful about stuff like that. Trans fat, I mean, if you ate it once, like a one-off, it's okay. But it's just like if you eat this all the time or you go out to eat a lot, just be very careful. This is really not healthy for you in the long run. And then there's dietary cholesterol. So cholesterol is not like a type of fat, but it's like a fat-like substance found in animal-based foods like meat, eggs, dairy, that type of thing. You having a little bit of cholesterol is okay. I mean, eggs have cholesterol in them too, right? But like it's like just not having too much of it, kind of like saturated fats, right? Like not too much of it, and just in moderation is okay. So Natalie says, I thought I was in premenopause until I started applying couple of Clarice information, my nutrition, and now I'm not sure anymore since so much bloating, digestion, intestinal issues diminished. I'm 48, so must be close to it, but less symptoms already. Yes. And Natalie, you're in the FFF program starting onboarding on Friday, so you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot around these different types of macronutrients, right? So, and at 48, the thing is, Natalie, your body is starting to change. So maybe like you're starting to see the differences come. And it's good that you address it earlier than not. Like, cause your body, like when like estrogen drops, certain things happen in your body. And then like, you just lose like just the simple example that estrogen helps prevent inflammation in your body. But if your estrogen starts to drop, inflammation starts rising faster in your body. So how can you use food and understand macronutrients to address this? I'm going to talk about inflammation in just a second. So I'm going to come back to it. So meaning like your understanding of macronutrients will help you a lot, Natalie, as you move into menopause. So why is it important to consume fats and healthy fats? Okay, so let's talk about a few reasons. Number one, fats are like your energy storage, and it helps you, like it has the best energy store. It's like double the energy source of carbs and protein. In our society where food is abundant, maybe it's not so important, but it's good because if ever you got sick, you know, you have some good energy stores in your body. Having a healthy amount of fats is really important. Number two, for cellular structure and function. So I don't know if you know that your cell membranes are composed a lot of fat. Fat is an essential part of your cellular membrane and the structural integrity of the cell. So if you don't have healthy fats entering, your cellular membrane could be like not properly formed or deficient, and this will affect cellular reception and cellular communication, right? If you don't get the right type of communication through your cells, lots of things can go wrong, right? If it's not uptaking, like the doors and communications not going through, neurotransmitters or different things like that aren't going through, then you have malfunctioning cellular communication, okay? So you want to have healthy fats to ensure this, right? Hi, Oshone, I see you popped on in. And then another reason you want healthy fats is hormone production. So I mentioned earlier, yes, protein is very needed for the structure of the hormones, but there's a certain class of hormones, more steroid-based hormones that you really like need fat for. And steroid-based hormones are like sex hormones. So estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, although I know you don't want cortisol, but you do need a little bit of cortisol, to be honest. Otherwise, you won't get up out of bed, right? So cortisol, ghrelin, and leptin. These are all based on having a good fat profile to develop these types of hormones. Now, when I say all of these hormones, those of you who follow me for a while, there's something that it should ring a bell now, okay? If you don't have enough fats entering your body, you can radically affect how much estrogen or testosterone is in your body, and you have a fast declining estrogen testosterone level that is impacting your body as you go through menopause. So you want to make sure, I would also say that menopausal women need to make sure they have a good level of healthy fats. And a lot of women, when they're scared of like gaining weight, they have a lot of belly fat. They're like, oh, I got to cut this, I got to cut that. But again, you got to know the right amount of fats for your body, because you do need it for estrogen, testosterone, cortisol too, but also ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin and leptin are your hunger signals, right? Ghrelin is the hunger signal. Leptin is the fullness level, fullness hormone. And if those are malfunctioning, then potentially during menopause, you're going to have a lot of like cravings, or your appetite seems like it's kind of all over the place. So again, having a healthy amount of fats is going to help you control that type of hormone signaling. It is very, very, very important. And of course, I talked about absorption of vitamins. So you need fats for A, D, E, K. So you need, A for like your vision health, your D for bone health. You need E for immune functioning, and K for blood clotting, right? So you need those vitamins to be absorbed by having enough healthy fats. And then another reason is the nervous system. So your nervous system actually requires fats to be present for there to be proper like neurotransmitters communication for your brain health, for your cognitive functioning. So if we look at this, okay, I'm going to give you context in menopause, because of course this is mainly the population I coach. So when you think about what I just said, so healthy fat percentage is really important for proper hormone signaling. Your body is already changing a lot in hormones, and you want to preserve as much of your hormone signaling as possible. So having good healthy fats is really important. You need healthy fats for proper neural firing. As you move into menopause, a lot of women start to have brain fog. And I'm actually curious who on here actually feels like they have like brain fog, or the brain doesn't think as fast, or if you do, put your hand up for brain fog, or like, I don't know, like I've heard people just say their brain is just not functioning like as fast as it used to. And of course with age, of course, I understand things will slow down, but it's almost like you like lose your train of thought and you're just like, what's going on, right? So the mom brain, yes, Sherry, yeah, the mom brain, exactly. But as people age, I mean, I talk to a lot of you in the 50s, 60s, and you're like, oh, it frustrates me. My brain doesn't like operate the same way anymore. Like, and I get this like fogginess and everything. And so part of it is hormones. Your hormones are shifting a lot. Lots of things are happening. It is also partly due to inflammation. Now, I've done a lot of talks on inflammation. If you have a gut inflammation, meaning you don't eat well, and you inflame your gut and it crosses the gut-brain axis and it moves to your brain, you have inflammation inflaming the brain, which affects the myelin sheath that actually transmits the information to each other. This is actually like long-term not healthy if your brain is inflamed. And so this is why nutrition is really crucial, because you're experiencing brain fog through many things, not just like whether you have enough fat or not. I'm just saying though, but if you don't have enough fat, you could also affect the ability for your body to properly fire the signals. Yeah, Jennifer says yeah, used to have brain fog, not anymore, thanks to eating Clarice's way. Good, awesome, I'm glad. And now, Jennifer, you are energetic, feisty, and doing lots of cardio too, Jennifer, right? We have an ongoing joke between us. No, she's doing awesome. Pam says brain fog, especially with people's names. Yes, Pam. So obviously, and I will say, because Pam is working with me in transformation right now, just you have a high level of inflammation. We're starting to address it. I know you're working with me on it, but the way you were eating is it's like you had a lot of inflammation happening in your system. So this should definitely improve as we work together on things. So the other thing about inflammation, one more thing. So I mentioned to, was it Natalie that I said earlier, that healthy fats has been proven in research to help combat inflammation, right? So having healthy fats is going to help you with decreasing inflammation in your body that is already present as you age and during menopause. So making sure you have those good healthy fats is important. All right, now here's the thing, okay? Here's the part where you're like, okay, I know I need healthy fats. The tricky part of this, okay, is that you need healthy fats, but fats is very dense and is very calorically dense, nuts and things like that. Rosalinda, I wish you were on here because we had this conversation about those fats. And if you do need healthy fats, but be careful about over spiking that too fast, because if you had way too much fat, and then that can also cause a problem, okay? Because fat in just a little bit can like spike your total calories and total amount, right? So just be careful. And the other thing is, as you know, I'm finicky about the way things are processed, the way things are done. As you know, many types of oils, and those liquid oils that are in the unsaturated fat category I told you about has a lot of problems potentially in the way they're processed. So this is something that I know I do educate a lot of my clients on, about the oils. The ones who did my 21-day anti-inflammation system, I know in the course load we talked about this, and the way it's processed. A lot of the vegetable oils has a lot of chemicals that end up being in it. You have to be very careful about, even though like recommendation wise you should have more unsaturated fats, be careful about that, because a lot of the oils are pretty they're harmful for you because of how it's processed. And beyond that is understanding a lot of the vegetable oils and all of that have a high content of omega-6. Now you hear omega-3 and 6 is important. It's true. They're overall good for your body. But if you have a higher content of omega-6 to omega-3, that type of ratio creates an inflammation response in your body. So you could be thinking you are doing yourself a favor by eating more unsaturated fats, but spiking the omega-6 incorrectly and then causing more inflammation in your body. So this is where I say, like, again, you have to really kind of know a little bit more about like your oils. You need to know like which ones are good for you. Yes, you can have nuts and seeds, and that's good. Be careful of how much. Again, quantity matters, because with 2 or 3 of my clients I had to talk about with nuts and stuff like that. So just, being aware of that, but also being aware, like, hey, when people say you should have more unsaturated fats, you also have to have knowledge of which ones are actually good for you or better for you, and being careful about a lot of the vegetable oils, okay? It's more complex than that, but like, again, if you want to learn more about like fats or the oils and different things like that, maybe put 21 day. I know the 21 day, we're going, like I told you, we're going to do a final launch within a few weeks of that program. And in that course, I talk a lot about those oils, right? Sherry, you're on here. Sherry, you did my course. Sherry, I think you did my course, and I think you say, whoa, I learned a lot about that, the oils and everything. So, hi, Michelle. I see you just popped in. Awesome. Okay. So now let's go to the percentage recommendations. Okay. Again, I get asked, what's the recommendation? Again, general. Okay. General. Okay. So the dietary guidelines that they have is like generally have 20 to 30% for your fat ratios. Again, that's a big range because that's 10% difference. And I would again say that, as you age and when you're in menopause, you do have a higher need for healthy fats. So that's something you want to keep in mind for yourself, okay? Why do you need actually a higher level of fat for yourself when you are aging and in menopause? One, partially because you are facing more inflammation, okay? 21, yes. I don't know what that means when you say WTG. You have to tell me. I don't know these acronyms. So yeah, so when you're aging, you want more healthy fats to combat inflammation. But also you want more healthy fats because like when you're in menopause, a lot of your hormones are dropping, like I said. So you want all of that to combat it, right? So when it says the recommendations is 20 to 30%, I would say maybe more, but again, I'm very cautious of that because I don't know you, right? Or how much weight you have to lose, how much fat percentage is currently in your body, how much inflammation are you currently struggling with, what kind of workouts are you doing? And let's talk about one more thing. I forgot. This was what I wanted to say. A lot of research has been done, and on some of my previous lives of like building muscle, the research has shown that women preferentially use fat for energy when they are working out, and in terms of like when they're really trying to build muscle, their preference is to use fat instead of carbs. And the way to go. Oh, Shoni, we're trying to guess, Sherry, what the WTG stands for. Oh, 21 is the way to go. Is that it, Sherry? At least it wasn't WTF, because I think that means something completely different. So, but yeah, so in terms of preferences, women is known to use fat preferentially for energy source, for muscle building, and in their workouts. So whereas men use more carbs. And so this is why, like, okay, so actually women may benefit from having more fats in their eating regime, especially as they age, whereas men can still take a high level amounts of carbs. As you know, you look at your husband or your son, you're like, why can you eat so much carbs? That is just crazy, right? Just their body functions differently. So something for you to keep in mind that, like, there's a lot of reasons a woman and a menopausal woman may benefit from more healthy fats, okay? So Sherry says, way to go. Yes, you got it, Oshone. That's awesome. And fat in moderation helps with satiety. I think I said that right. So if you are like, okay, wait, fat is actually super important, I have to learn the fats, put fat below, or you could put 21 as well. 21 days actually to deal with inflammation, but it's like, it teaches a lot around the right types of like oils and fats and things like that you need to have. So put fat or 21 below if you want to learn more about that. And Oshone says, yep, it's tough without knowing lifestyle factors and even health conditions. Yes, exactly. Because also, like, if you're, like, I would say your macro distribution is going to look different if you're just a normal person going through menopause versus maybe Pam, because Pam, I know you raised your hand last time, I believe is type 2 diabetic, who already has a high level of inflammation in her body. Her macro distribution is not going to be as same as someone else. I just know it, right? Like, it's just not. But then someone else comes to me, as sometimes there is, where you're super lean already, but you want to look like a competitor. And I get it. You want to look like, just like shredded. Now that macronutrient distribution is going to be very different from someone who's just like wants to just lose some fat and be healthy overall. Like that macronutrient distribution. So the macronutrient distribution changes per person. And this is where you have to be very good at understanding the nutrition base. That's why I described protein, carbs, and fat to you, the roles they are in your body, and why it's more important what's more important to emphasize during menopause. Okay, that's why I'm going through all of this with all of you. Okay, and Lynette, I do see the 21, and we will connect with you. Hi, Barb. Thanks for jumping in. And yes, Pam is type 2 diabetic, exactly. And hi, Deborah. Thanks for jumping in as well. So the last part I want to cover here is, like, how do you calculate your macronutrient distribution? Now, on this live, it's like not, again, it's not like the answer is be all end all. I did cover this in the initial fitness guide. If you entered our group and you're a new member on here, by the way, if you are new, put new here, because I will tell you that for some reason we have trouble connecting with all our new members. We try really hard, but sometimes you're not able to see our messages. I was at a max friend thing and I couldn't add any more friends, and now I have made room for 500 more. So maybe you're not seeing our messages, and if you don't see our messages, you might not get our free fitness guide, which talks a lot about what I'm about to talk about, which is the macronutrient like calculations, right? So if you're new, put new so that we can actually connect with you. Okay, Natalie is new. Okay, we will connect with you for sure. So in terms of macronutrient distribution, what do you need to do to know the different ratios of carbs, fat, and protein in grams? Okay, and this is really important. It should be done in grams, by the way. Yeah, a lot of people do it differently, but your macronutrients should be, it was the distribution of your protein, carbs, and fat in grams. Okay, well, the first thing is you have to establish your basal metabolic rate. Okay, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate is how much energy do you need to function, for your body to survive. And there's an equation that's typically calculated. You can find online calculators, and on that fitness guide, I talk about the Harris-Benedict equation, the Catch-McCardle equation. There's a lot of different ones. They're quite complex. Like, there's a huge number thing that you use, like height, weights, female or male, all the stuff. And the the Catch-McCardle equation uses lean body mass. So you would actually have to know your lean body mass to calculate it. Now, I'm not giving you the equation. You can just look up Harris-Benedict equation. You can get the equation or get the free fitness guide that we have, and you can calculate it. But what I will say is, like, it's good to calculate it, but remember, it's general as well. Because, like, when it says it uses height, weight, gender, and I think one other thing, it doesn't calculate, like, what's your work occupation? How much stress level do you go through? How much sleep do you get? Do you struggle with belly fat? Are you in premenopause, menopause, or postmenopause, right? So do you see there's a limitation to these calculations? And but I'm just letting you know, this is kind of why you can use that equation or grab our free fitness guide and calculate something out, but it is still missing a lot of factors. That is just not going to give you the full equation, okay? But let's just say this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to calculate your basal metabolic rate, BMR, okay? From the BMR, you then need to take you need to factor in your activity level, meaning how much activity you do. So there's a a multiplication factor. So you're supposed to take your BMR times it by a activity level factor. So, they have certain things like, okay, if you're sedentary, times it by 1.2. If you're a little bit more active, times it by 1.3. So you use an activity level grid to times your activity level. Again, you can see there's limitations to that, right? Because you're like, well, how do you define how much lightly active or moderately active? Like what, you know what I mean? Like, again, limitations. So, but they're supposed to then times it by an activity level, okay? So you have your basal metabolic rate, times it by an activity level, and then you'll have a certain caloric range or number. Then from the certain caloric number, you're supposed to then take that and divide it in a certain percentage for protein, for carbs, and for fat. Okay, so then you take that number and then start to divide the percentages for the 3 macronutrients. And that part is where it's a little tricky, right? It's like, well, what is the percentages for the protein, carbs, and fat? I just went through all of that above for you and all the general recommendations. But I think when you're setting protein, carbs, and fat ratios, you have to determine what your goal is, right? You have to determine what's your goal. What is what's your lifestyle factor currently like? And what phase are you wanting? Like, are you wanting bulking? You want body recomposition, or you want shredding? Or you're eating for a certain athletic pursuit, right? So you have to determine those goals that will then determine how you divide your percentage ratios. And then once you have your percentage ratios of your protein, carbs, and fat, then the next thing that's actually really important that a lot of people forget is you actually have to monitor and adjust your macros. And I call this the dialing process, okay? The dialing process is actually needed. And even if you study any macronutrient literature, says like you're not supposed to stay at the same macro all the time. You are supposed to regularly monitor and adjust accordingly, because your macronutrients needs will change based on changes in weight, changes in body composition, how much fat versus muscles in your body, your energy level, your performance, like in terms of what you do or at the gym, your overall well-being, your mental, emotional state. A lot of those factors, if they change, your macros should change along with it. And so in terms of like this step-by-step process, describing it to you is great. I would say the difficulty is like learning what would be the right percentage for your body. I call it the magic combo number, like the magic 3, because in a combination lock you have 3 numbers, and I say, like, if you can find the magic 3 number, you're gonna be a lot more equipped for the future, for your physique, for your body. So one of my goals when I work with my clients is to find the magic 3 number, but I don't find it at the beginning, right? All of you who work with me, you know that I observe you for a while. I watch, I'm dialing, I'm looking at all the things you're doing first, and then I figure out like what would be probably the best and most appropriate protein factor, and then again my knowledge about carbs and what are the carbs you need, and then figure out the carbs and then the fat from there, right? Because it's there's a lot of factors to when you have this amount of protein or this amount of carbs, what happens in the body and your hormones. So I would say for everyone that's watching, if you need more macro help and you're like, I need to know how all the macros work together, I want you to put macros below, because it is something that has to be learned. And again, I say once you learn it, then you have your magic 3. And once you have your magic 3, it's a lot easier to kind of work from there. Okay, so if you want to learn more about macros, I want you to put macros below. Okay, hi Celeste, I see you had popped in here. So yes, Oshone put here, for the people who put you're new, you might need to check your message request inbox if you haven't received a message from me, because when we send new messages to new members, it doesn't go to your inbox, it goes to your message request folder. So you have to actually go to your message, go to top, it says message request, and click on there, because sometimes we're hiding in there and you don't see our messages to you. So make sure you put macros if you want to learn more about macros. Pam, we are going to work on it. I know you're in our transformation program. program. Lisa, Cindy, Rosalie, awesome. Okay, so we will reach out to you. Now, few final thoughts, and then we're going to wrap up. I want to talk briefly about if you are at a plateau. Okay. When you are at a plateau, there's a lot of things that may need to change. There's a lot of factors, many things involved. But I will say, like, when you're at a plateau, you might need to think about, is your macronutrients actually balanced, or are you missing certain macronutrients? Like you're too high in one or too low in the other, or you're having a certain macronutrient focus, like protein, like I mentioned, but not thinking, are you going over in carbs and fat? Sometimes when people are at plateau is because they're not taking into account some other factors around the food they're eating. Like they're eating healthy, like the food, when I look at it, is not bad. Like you're eating healthy food, but your macronutrient ratios are off, and that affects you as well, right? So that's something to consider if you're at a plateau. And you have to also remember, if you're at a plateau, sometimes the signals in your body are functioning a certain way. Certain signals are being excreted, and that has to do with like how much, let's just say, how much carbs are in your system, how much fat is in your system, because they all connect to which hormones get released, right? So when someone understands your body, or what you're going through, or like what's happening in your menopausal body, they're gonna want to shift your macros a certain way to produce a different hormonal signal. And so this is kind of why, like, if you have someone who professionally knows you, or actually knows and observes you, like they can actually help you a lot more with the dialing process of how different foods affect certain hormones. Okay, so because I know, was it you, Rosalie, who mentioned you're at a plateau, or someone mentioned they're at a plateau? Who here is at a plateau? Did I already ask this? If you're at a plateau, indicate plateau below, because plateaus, I would say one of the best ways to break plateaus is adjusting your macros. Okay, it isn't always about like do more work, do more cardio, because guess what? If you do more work and do more cardio, you may spike your cortisol. It may actually make things worse, right? You might get more exhausted. You might get more burnt out. You might even burn off more muscle. So the key isn't always, it could be a little bit, but it isn't always to like do more work and do a lot more things. It's a lot of times is to make sure you dial your macronutrients, right? So if you're at a plateau, maybe indicate plateau there. And yes, and then as well, the final thoughts on macronutrients is, macronutrients, I think the biggest thing is understanding that it helps you with both quantity of food and quality of food, right? It actually addresses both. It addresses both because it, when you have macros, you're looking at the quality of protein, carbs, and fat, but you're also looking at the quantity of grams of protein, carbs, and fat. So because it addresses both quantity and quality, it gives you a much more precise way of working with your nutrition. And it focuses away from just pure calories, because just calories up, calories down is kind of like missing pieces to it, right? And then when you do macros, you can look at the interaction between protein with protein and carbs and what this does, or let's say protein with fat, what this does, or how it interacts with each other. So you just get more data overall. And then the last thing is with macros, the difficulty for most people, once they learn macros, and I teach this in my programs, obviously, about like macros and what is in the categories of each macros, and then their combination, which are called macro combos. But the difficulty for a lot of people is what's called the spillovers, right? The spillovers means like most of the food you consume doesn't have just one macro in it. It could be a food with protein, carbs, and fat in it. So how do you adjust for maybe the spillover of these macros as you combine other macros with it, and not go over in your fat or go over in your carbs? So it's like you kind of have to learn. You have to have a period to learn it. But once you learn it, like I said, riding a bike or driving a car, then it becomes almost like second nature. And then the real main thing you need eventually is to learn or work with someone to just dial you. And the dialing process, maybe with some advanced knowledge, someone can help you with that. But like the crux of it is like learning macros, learning what are macronutrients, what categories, which ones which ones are the best for your body, and combination, right? So hopefully like this is making sense. I'm glad that Deborah says love this, because I'm hoping I'm making sense, because sometimes people find macros really confusing. I'm trying to make it understandable to all of you. Yeah, Melody and Deborah, thank you for jumping in. So like I said, last thing here is that this is the last week of uptake for our FFF group coaching program. So if you want to learn more of that and you want to learn about macronutrients that we teach in there, put FFF below, okay, FFF below. Obviously, FFF has to have a timeline because it's group, but I have other programs too. So if you're like, oh no, I'm going to miss it, don't worry. Like, you just put programs or help below, and we have other programs that can help you potentially if you want to learn more about macronutrients. Okay. So put FFF or program if you want more help, and hopefully this added lots of value to all of you. And yeah, thank you for waiting for me while I figured out my computer, but I always will show up. So I will always figure out a way to show up for all of you. So yeah, love all of you, and we will see you next week.